The kitchen was big and bright. It was shiny and new. Chef Cat wore a tall white hat. His name was Chef Claude. He had soft ginger fur and very green eyes. Today was a very special day. It was the day of the grandest cooking contest. Chef Claude wanted to win more than anything. He dreamed of the big golden trophy. It would look so lovely on his shelf. He hummed a happy little tune as he tied his apron. The kitchen was his kingdom, and today he would be king of all the chefs in the land. Chef Claude looked at his recipe. It was for the most wonderful cake, a super-duper strawberry surprise cake. He needed flour, sugar, eggs, and butter. And of course, he needed the biggest, reddest strawberries. He had everything ready. All his ingredients were in neat little bowls. His big silver mixing bowl was clean and sparkling. His favorite wooden spoon was by its side. Everything was perfect. Absolutely, wonderfully perfect. He just needed to start mixing everything together to create his masterpiece for the judges. This was his chance to shine. First, the flour, said Chef Claude to himself. He picked up a big bag. It was soft and white like a cloud. He measured it carefully into his bowl. Not too much, not too little, he whispered. Just right. He smiled a big, proud smile. He was a very good chef and he knew it. He imagined the judges tasting his cake. They would say, "Oh, Chef Claude, this is the best cake in the whole wide world." He felt a warm, fuzzy feeling inside, just thinking about the moment he would be declared the winner. He reached for the sugar next. It sparkled under the kitchen lights. It looked like tiny, sweet diamonds. He would add just enough to make his cake sweet, but not too sugary. He clapped his paws together with excitement. This cake was going to be magnificent. It would be a cake that everyone remembered for years and years. A cake worthy of the golden trophy. The kitchen was quiet and peaceful. Nothing could possibly go wrong on this most important of days. Or so he thought. But Chef Claude was not alone. A tiny nose twitched in a small dark hole in the wall. A pair of beady eyes peeked out. It was Remy the rat. Remy was not a chef. Remy was a snack finder, and he smelled something delicious. He wiggled his whiskers and sniffed the air again. Strawberries and sugar and butter! Remy's tummy rumbled a loud, rumbling rumble. He had to get a closer look. He was a very sneaky rat, and he was very, very hungry for a tasty treat. Slowly, oh so slowly, Remy crept out of his hole. He tiptoed across the big, tiled floor. Pitter-patter went his tiny feet. He hid behind a big bag of potatoes. He peeked around the corner. He saw Chef Claude busy with his bowls and spoons, and he saw the ingredients. The big red strawberries looked so juicy. The lump of yellow butter looked so creamy. Remy licked his lips. He just wanted a little taste, just a tiny nibble. Surely the chef wouldn't miss just one small strawberry. Remy saw his chance. Chef Claude turned his back to get the eggs. Quick as a flash, Remy scurried up the leg of the table. He was very fast and very quiet. He reached the tabletop and looked around. It was like a wonderful food playground. He saw the bowl of sugar. He dipped his paw in and had a little taste. So sweet. Then he saw the strawberries. They were plump and perfect. He grabbed the biggest one he could find with his two front paws. It was almost as big as his head. He tried to carry the giant strawberry back to his hiding spot, but it was very heavy. He wobbled and he wiggled. Almost there, he squeaked to himself, but as he pulled the strawberry, he knocked over a small bag of chocolate chips. Plink, plunk, plink. The little brown chips scattered across the counter. Chef Claude heard the noise. He turned around with a frown. "What was that?" he said, his green eyes looking around the kitchen. He saw the mess of chocolate chips and knew something was amiss. Chef Claude's eyes narrowed. He saw a tiny tail disappearing behind the sugar jar. "Aha!" he cried. "A rat in my kitchen!" He grabbed the nearest tool. It was a long silver whisk. "Get away from my ingredients, you sneaky pest!" he shouted, waving the whisk in the air like a sword. Remy squeaked and dropped the strawberry. He dodged the whisk and ran behind the big mixing bowl, his heart beating fast. He had not planned on a fight, only a feast. Remy peeked over the edge of the bowl. Chef Claude was coming closer. Remy needed a weapon of his own. He saw the big wooden spoon. He jumped onto it and pushed with all his might. The spoon slid across the counter and bumped into a bowl of eggs. Crack! Splat! An egg rolled out and broke on the floor. "My egg!" yelled Chef Claude. "You will pay for that!" He was very cross now. This was not going according to his perfect plan at all. The kitchen was getting messy. Chef Claude grabbed a sieve full of flour. This would stop the rat. He shook it hard. A big white cloud of flour poofed into the air. Whoosh! Flour went everywhere. It covered the counter. It covered the floor. It covered Remy, who now looked like a little white ghost. "Achoo!" sneezed Remy. Flour tickled his nose. He shook his head and flour flew in every direction. The kitchen was turning into a winter wonderland, but it was not very fun for the chef. Remy, now a brave flour ghost, decided to fight back. He jumped onto the bag of flour. With a great big heave, he pushed it over. A huge wave of white powder spilled out all over Chef Claude. Now the chef was a ghost too. He was covered from the tip of his tall hat to the end of his tail. He sputtered and coughed. He couldn't see a thing through the flowery storm. The cat and the rat chased each other around the messy kitchen, slipping and sliding in a silly, chaotic dance. In the middle of all the chaos, the judges for the grandest cooking contest walked in. There were 3 of them, all wearing very serious faces and carrying clipboards. They stopped at the door and stared. Their mouths dropped open. The kitchen was a disaster zone. Flour was everywhere, eggs were smashed on the floor, and strawberries were rolling under the tables. And in the center of it all, a flour-covered cat was chasing a flour-covered rat around a big silver bowl. This was not what they expected to see. Chef Claude and Remy were too busy with their battle to notice the judges. Remy, trying to escape, scrambled into the big mixing bowl. He slipped on the flour and sugar inside. As he slid, he knocked in the butter. He bumped into the remaining strawberries, which tumbled in after him. He accidentally kicked the last egg into the bowl, where it cracked perfectly. He ran around and around, and his little feet mixed everything together. A strange, lumpy, swirly mixture started to form in the bottom of the bowl. One of the judges, a very tall poodle, walked carefully into the kitchen. He peered into the big silver bowl. Remy saw him and got a fright. He jumped out of the bowl and ran as fast as he could, straight back to his little hole in the wall, leaving his accidental creation behind. The judge looked at the weird mixture. He dipped his finger in and had a taste. His eyes went wide with surprise. "Incredible," he announced. "So unique, such a bold combination of textures. It's messy, but it's genius." The other judges came over and tasted the mixture too. They all agreed. It was the most interesting and delicious thing they had tasted all day. They didn't know it was an accident. They thought it was a new kind of deconstructed cake. Chef Claude stood there, covered in flour, completely confused. The head judge picked up the big golden trophy. He walked right past the stunned cat and placed it carefully on the counter, right next to the mixing bowl. The trophy was for the mysterious, messy, brilliant dish. Unseen in his hole, Remy the rat had won the cooking contest.